Welcome. On behalf of the Ohio Ecological Food and Farm Association, the Ohio Farmers Market Network, the Ohio Food Policy Network, and Produce Perks Midwest, thank you for joining us for this morning's virtual press conference. My name is Lauren Ketcham, and I'm OFA's Communications Director. Our coalition as a statewide food and farm organizations is pleased to share our new 18-page report, Opportunity in a Time of Crisis, Recommendations for Building a More Resilient Ohio Food System. Ohio's local and regional food system consists of a diversity of businesses, including farms, value-added producers and processors, farmers markets, food hubs, auctions, retailers, and distributors that deal in fruits and vegetables, meat, eggs, dairy, grains, and more. Most local and regional farmers rely on direct-to-consumer outlets such as farmers markets and community-supported agriculture programs. Ohio has experienced robust growth in these direct-to-consumer channels, which grew from $46 million in 2012 to $80 million in 2017. This report captures the landscape of these local and regional food systems and how they were impacted by COVID-19. It details how farmers and farmers markets have risen to the challenge of this crisis and adapted to feed Ohio's families at the same time that our national supply chains faltered. It also describes how many of these adaptations are ultimately unsustainable without state and federal leadership. This report identifies 8 policy recommendations that Ohio's decision makers can implement in the short term to invest in the long-term capacity of our food system to better withstand future disruptions and build food security for vulnerable families. When you registered, you should have received an embargoed copy of this report. The report and the press release are also available at the links I'll be posting in the chat shortly. Today's virtual press conference will feature 4 speakers who will highlight specific areas of the report and our key recommendations. After their remarks, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. Until then, we'll be keeping everyone muted and you won't be able to unmute yourself. Please hold your questions to ask during the Q&A portion at the end or type them into the chat at any time. My colleague, Milo Petrozello, will be monitoring this chat for discussion at the end. Please be sure to include your name and your outlet with your question. This press conference will be recorded. Our first speaker is Jaime Hadji, Chair of the Ohio Farmers Market Network. She is also the co-founder of Wayward Seed Farm and Great River Organics, an organic farmer-owned nonprofit cooperative, and she's managed several Central Ohio farmers markets. Our second speaker is Amalie Lipstreu, Policy Director for the Ohio Ecological Food and Farm Association. Amalie has a master's degree in public policy from Kent State University and more than 25 years of public and social service experience. She has worked on state and federal agriculture and food policy and is the former Director of Sustainable Agriculture and the Ohio Food Policy Advisory Council at the Ohio Department of Agriculture. Our third speaker is Tevis Foreman, who serves as the Executive Director of Produce Perks Midwest, with more than 10 years of experience addressing issues of population health, public policy, and equitable food system development. Tevis was a fellow for the Center for Progressive Leadership and serves on numerous councils and committees and networks focused on the development of healthy and equitable food systems. Our fourth and final speaker is Michelle Moskowitz Brown, Chair of the Ohio Food Policy Network and Executive Director of Central Ohio nonprofit Local Matters, which is focused on food education, access, and advocacy. In addition to our media guests and speakers, we're also pleased to have several people listening in today who help provide guidance, feedback, and support during the development of this report, including Amy Boddicker-Basks and Market Manager Michelle White of the Clintonville Farmers Market. Now I'll turn things over to Jaime Hadji with the Ohio Farmers Market Network. Once I unmute her.
Thank you, Lauren. The Ohio Farmers Market Network is proud to serve alongside our colleagues to address the needs of direct-to-consumer farmers, food producers, and farmers markets throughout Ohio. Local and regional farmers rely heavily on direct-to-consumer marketplaces, such as farmers markets, farm stands, and community-supported agriculture programs, also known as CSA. While there is unfortunately a widespread lack of economic data collected on local food systems, the evidence we do have strongly suggests that direct-to-consumer farmers were experiencing robust growth prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Ohio Farmers Market Network has estimated there are 400 farmers markets in Ohio, and on average generate approximately $11,000 per market day. They incubate new agriculture-related businesses such as pickles, salsas, jams, and other value-added products, and create a multiplier effect for the local economy, creating 15 full-time jobs for every $1 million in revenue earned. Farmers markets also provide important access points to local food. Nearly 75% of farmers markets have at least one vendor accepting federal nutrition assistance as payment, in addition to the markets themselves being approved to accept them on behalf of all eligible vendors. These programs include the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, known as SNAP, the Women, Infants, and Children Farmers Market Nutrition Program, the Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, and our Ohio Nutrition Incentive Program, known as Produce Perks. As COVID-19 exposed the vulnerabilities of a consolidated global food supply chain, local farmers continued to farm, and farmers markets quickly adapted. Online sales, CSA programs, home delivery, and drive-through market alternatives have grown exponentially. However, these adaptations have required considerable time, energy, and cost to accomplish. Farmers and markets have incurred additional costs such as labor, PPE, sanitizer, rent, and other overhead for new locations, and online sales platform fees and management. At the same time, markets have lost income from vendor fees, sponsorships, events, and educational or entertainment activities. And farmers have lost sales due to reduced market attendance or altogether closure of direct-to-consumer outlets. And most have received no government support for their losses or additional costs, as federal programs are tailored to large-scale commodity growers. Despite these obstacles, farmers and markets have demonstrated incredible resilience and creativity in responding to the crisis, but many of these sacrifices are not sustainable. The current crisis has revealed the important service local farmers markets provide to farmers and consumers, but investment is needed to ensure they don't disappear from our communities, cutting off an important source of local food. Our first recommendation is to establish an interagency food work group to identify strategies to fund and build farmers market capacity, improving public health and food system resiliency. This work should give consideration to the administration of these programs and ensure a streamlined system that provides consistency for customers, farmers, and markets. Together, we have an incredible opportunity to build a more resilient regional local food system. Ohio's decision makers need to invest, and together we will ensure a stronger food system that's capable of serving all of our communities. I would now like to introduce my colleague, Amalie Lipstreu, Policy Director at the Ohio Ecological Food and Farm Association.
Thank you, Jamie. It's my pleasure to speak to recommendations 2 through 5 from the Opportunity in Crisis report. All of these recommendations have the potential to contribute health, wealth, and resilience of Ohio's residents and our food system. We have an opportunity to address a severe lack of food processing facilities in the state, which is a limiting factor in having a robust food system. Many of us have heard post-pandemic stories of the largest 4 meat processing plants in the country, some of whom shut their doors due to COVID-19 infection rates, ultimately disrupting the supply of meat to consumers. At that time, many Ohio residents turned to farmers in their communities for access to meat products, and some farmers were able to step in and fill that demand. Unfortunately, some were not able to do so, as meat processors have been at capacity for years, and many producers have to schedule their livestock processing months in advance. Additionally, there's only one certified organic meat processor in the state. At the same time, many livestock producers are interested in becoming certified organic, but don't do so for lack of processing facilities. This is but one example of hampered business growth in the food and farm sector, where investment could create new jobs, more tax revenue, and make our food system more resilient to future market disruptions. Another example of limited processing capacity is flash freezing. Unfortunately, in Ohio, the growing season for fruits and vegetables does not coincide with the school season. The schools that want to source from Ohio farmers have difficulty doing so because of a lack of facilities that can minimally process and store product for fall, winter, and spring. Having that capacity would allow farmers to market their products to schools, other institutions, and retail outlets, increasing farm profitability and local economic multipliers. Building on the recommendation shared by Jaime, an interagency food working group established by the governor could identify areas in the state where these food processing facilities are needed and how they can be supported. This is an investment in health, wealth, and jobs for Ohio communities. When we look specifically at the impact of the pandemic on farmers, Congress acted quickly to provide resources for those dealing with incredible disruptions in labor, processing, and markets. The CARES Act included clear language that some of the resources in that legislation be earmarked for local and regional farmers. Unfortunately, the USDA chose to ignore that guidance from Congress, and as a result, many small to mid-scale farmers are not getting the help that they need. We asked Senators Sherrod Brown and Rob Portman to support provisions in the next pandemic aid package, the HEROES Act, that will help underserved local and regional farmers and strengthen the bill, making sure they get the support they need. Their success will contribute to the resilience of our food supply. Staying with this theme of support for farmers, there's some good news. Ohio is 6th in the nation in the number of beginning farmers. Having young people who want to take up the profession of farming is critical to make sure we have a thriving food and agriculture industry and food supply into the future. Yet access to land is a perennial problem for beginning farmers. They're easily outbid by large, well-resourced operations and developers. Our food security depends on farmland staying in production and new farmers having access to Ohio's productive, prime, and unique farmland. The next General Assembly can make that happen. Legislators in both the Ohio House and Senate introduced House Bill 183 and Senate Bill 159 respectively. The Family Farm Regeneration Act is a bipartisan bill that would provide tax credits to landowners who transition land and other agricultural resources to the next generation. We ask that this bill be championed in the next legislative session. Lastly, I'd like to share another important opportunity for us to invest in the growth of Ohio farms and Ohio food businesses. Across the country, local governments spend almost $4 trillion through contracting. Often, most of that wealth leaves the state. Specifying local contracting preferences that would increase state tax revenue, promote business generation, and success can run afoul of World Trade Organization rules. But there is an option to retain and recirculate that wealth here in Ohio. State and local governments can require contract bidders to indicate a minimum percentage they plan to re-spend in the state, in this case, on local food purchasing. This would increase the benefit of state contracting for Ohio farmers, generate more wealth and tax revenues, and allow all companies to compete on a level playing field. By taking advantage of these administrative and policy tools, we can create a more resilient food system and promote comprehensive community health. Now I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Tevis Foreman.
Thank you, Amalie. It's certainly a pleasure and an honor to be a part of this working group, and I'm certainly appreciative of the time and consideration for all of those joining us this morning. I will focus primarily on recommendations 6 and 7 regarding online infrastructure development for low-income consumers, farmers, and small market retailers. My name is Tevis Foreman, and I serve as the Executive Director of Produce Perks Midwest. We serve as Ohio's lead agency administering nutrition incentive programming statewide. The Produce Perks program is Ohio's nutrition incentive program, and it empowers low-income consumers receiving SNAP and pandemic EBT benefits to purchase fresh, healthy fruits and vegetables by providing a dollar-for-dollar match on the SNAP and PEBT dollar. The matching Produce Perks dollars can only be used to purchase fruits and vegetables from Ohio farmers, direct-to-consumer markets, and local retailers. Produce Perks is a program born out of Cleveland, and it is a collective and collaborative effort of diverse partners from across our state. In 2019, Produce Perks generated over $900,000 in healthy food purchases from SNAP beneficiaries at over 100 locations statewide. These dollars, they're going directly back into local economies, increasing revenues for Ohio's local and regional farmers and small business grocery retailers. The leadership of Governor DeWine and his administration, that of the Ohio Department of Health and Dr. Amy Acton, have been second to none. Furthermore, the Herculean efforts of our state agencies and organizations, most notably our food bank partners and pantries across the state, they've responded in an exemplary manner, and Ohioans are better off for it. Nonetheless, our current responses are neither sustainable nor equitable. They are a response and not a solution. The impacts of COVID-19 have magnified the long-standing systemic inequities that have disproportionately affected low-income communities across our state. Now, there is an opportunity, however, for innovative and inclusive solutions that advance equity while building sustainable infrastructure that will serve Ohioans long after COVID-19 has passed. Ohio has recently joined 36 other states in the online SNAP purchasing pilot, and it is essential that we now invest in the development of online infrastructure that supports healthy food purchases for our low-income consumers, that supports Ohio farmers and small business markets and retailers. These investments must create online marketplaces for Ohio's direct-to-consumer producers and small-scale local grocery retailers. Investment in local infrastructure that increase local purchasing power will have a multiplier effect that will strengthen our economies for the long term. These solutions will allow us to adapt in real time to the ongoing impacts and realities of the COVID-19 pandemic while providing lasting systemic change and equitable purchasing opportunities. We must have the vision and clarity to take these steps with purpose. These are solutions that recognize the inherent dignity and choice, a choice that many of us take for granted, the choice to choose what one eats. I thank you for your time, and it is my pleasure to turn it over to the wonderful Michelle Moskowitz Brown.
Thank you, Tevis. Good morning. I'm Michelle Moskowitz Brown, and it's great to be here with you all this morning. I'm going to talk about the final recommendation in our report, and I'll just start by sharing that in our work at the Ohio Food Policy Network, Local Matters, people always tell us that they wish there could be a return to home economics in our classrooms because kids really aren't learning about nutritious food and how to prepare it. And the results are that 33% of our children are at risk for early onset diabetes and heart disease. And for African American children, the issue is much greater. By the time adults seek out this education or are referred to it by their doctors, they're often experiencing a costly and deadly diet-related chronic disease. It's no wonder that we have these issues, as everybody has a scarcity of something, be it time, be it resources, or be it skills to prepare and eat well and feed their families. Recommendation number 8 in the report can help. It calls on the Ohio legislature to pass Senate Bill 121, requiring the State Board of Education to adopt health standards for education, as is the case with other academic content areas. The standards will not mandate what curriculum is taught, but it will help districts promote nutrition education and healthful habits that will be tailored to each individual district's needs. It will help ensure that students have the necessary skills to adapt to and navigate critical health challenges like diet-related disease. When taken together, the combination of farming, processing, distribution, food access, and food education recommendations in the report, they will contribute to moving Ohio up from being the 46th out of 50 states for health outcomes. And they will do so by addressing education, poverty, workforce, and military readiness. We owe it to the next generation of children to ensure that we can improve the quality and length of their lives. Thanks for your time and your interest, and I will turn it back to Lauren.